Hurricane Dorian has strengthened back into a Category 3 major hurricane this evening. I'm Mike Naso with yet again another video on Hurricane Dorian. You can see from the satellite perspective Dorian's eye has cleared out and it is much better defined than it was earlier, and the winds have increased back to Category 3 intensity. Very good outflow and symmetry into that trophiness to the north, and it's streaming out here and moving over the Gulf Stream, a very favorable looking major hurricane right offshore the South Carolina coastline. Okay, we've got a lot to cover. So as of 11 p.m. Eastern Time from the Hurricane Center, Hurricane Dorian was at 31.3 north, 79.6 west, winds back up to 115 miles per hour, a Category 3 major hurricane. It's moving north at 7, and you can see the wind field here. This yellow is the tropical storm force winds, and the red, the hurricane force winds, and the tropical storm force are now over areas of Georgia and South Carolina. You've had very gusty winds, hurricane warnings out all the way up through the Outer Banks to the Virginia border, as we're going to see the eye of the hurricane parallel South Carolina and North Carolina, and it looks like it might well make landfall in the vicinity of Morehead City, Emerald Isle, somewhere around, say, Friday morning, Thursday night, Friday morning. But again, it could be on the left edge of this cone, and it could stay just offshore. Either way, significant impacts likely, and then by the weekend we're going to get it out of here, but it will head towards Nova Scotia and the Canadian Maritimes. There's the radar image, and you can see out of Charleston a ragged eye that has become much better defined. Look at how circular it's become there as it's strengthened back into a Category 3 hurricane. Right there at the end, much better defined, and it is moving now due north. If it continued in that direction, it would come ashore somewhere just to the east of Charleston, South Carolina, but again, it is not expected to do that. It's expected to turn and then parallel the coastline up towards the Outer Banks. Storm surge with this hurricane is a significant threat. We could see water rises 3 to 9 feet in some areas here of South Carolina, where you have constant onshore flow up and around the center of the hurricane. And then further north, a lot of these little barrier islands here on North Carolina, Cape Lookout, Cape Fear, you guys are going to have very dangerous water rises, and the potential exists for storm surge flooding. And so if you are in a low-lying area and you're asked to evacuate, please do so. There's the inland rainfall outlook, and this is a flash flood risk map over the next 3 days. You could see anywhere from Charleston all the way up to the Outer Banks, close to the coast, have the highest high chance of flooding, and that's because of that rain shield of the hurricane that's going to be moving along the coastline over the next 2 to 3 days, and rainfall and severe weather will be a threat. Now Dorian, this is a satellite image from a week ago. You can see Hurricane Dorian was north of Puerto Rico, and we had a pretty interesting setup. We had the Bermuda High, the high pressure to the north of the hurricane, and we had nothing that was going to stop that high pressure from steering Hurricane Dorian straight into the Abacos, Bahamas, and into Florida. And what happened was very fascinating. Watch this loop here in the Midwestern U.S. See that blow-up of thunderstorms? It blew up unexpectedly on August 30th, right over here, over areas of Nebraska and Kansas and Missouri. That became a feature to weaken the high pressure to the north of Hurricane Dorian. So as Dorian moved towards the Bahamas, the high pressure backed off, and we now knew that Dorian was not going to hit Florida. So we saw Dorian move straight into the Bahamas as a Category 5 hurricane, devastating Abaco Island and Grand Bahama Island. However, with the high pressure backed off to its east, and no more trophiness to the north, and another high here off to its west, Dorian was trapped, had absolutely nowhere to go. And so what did we see it do? We saw it stall for a couple of days. Now we have more trophiness moving off the east coast, and that is picking up Dorian and moving him towards the Outer Banks of North Carolina. Nevertheless, you could see from that satellite perspective just a prolific hurricane, and that pounding of the Bahamas, the way it sat over it, was devastating. The European model, as of, 18Z, did have Hurricane Dorian making landfall in the general direction of Morehead City and moving over areas of the Outer Banks and then back offshore. And so that is going to be one of the computer models we're watching. Regardless, over the next 24, 36 hours, it's going to be paralleling the coast with dangerous conditions. All of these areas here are very susceptible to high storm surge. Wilmington, Atlantic Beach, Morehead City, Emerald Isle, Swansboro, Topsail Beach, Carolina Beach, Bald Head Island. And the way they poke out there, Bald Head Island and Cape Lookout, we could see the center of the eye actually cross the coast and make landfall, but we'll very likely see heavy onshore flow, and that's going to create that dangerous storm surge and hurricane force winds over the next several days. So when was the last time a Category 3 hurricane hit North Carolina? Believe it or not, with all the hurricanes we have, 1996. It was September 6th of 96, Hurricane Fran. Not Francis, Fran. Fran made landfall as a Category 3 hurricane in North Carolina, and obviously the track was different than Dorian. Hurricane Floyd was a Category 2 near Cape Fear, and that hit Abaco Island as a Category 3-4 hurricane, nothing like Dorian, but kind of a similar track here. It bent to the west, went into the Bahamas, but Dorian was much stronger and stalled. And so that was 20 years ago this month with Hurricane Floyd. And then, of course, 3 years ago we had Hurricane Matthew, but that was later in the year. That was in October. That come out of the Caribbean after hitting Haiti, went through the southern Bahamas, paralleled Florida, and hit South Carolina as a Category 2 hurricane. So again, you guys have been hit, but it's always nasty to see the flooding potential, and it's been 23 years since a major hurricane hit, which right now, this is a Category 3, so we'll see if it maintains that or goes back down to a 2, regardless a strong hurricane. Did want to touch on Fernand. It moved into Mexico. Still a good cloud shield there, and some nasty weather in South Texas and northern Mexico, but we're not going to have to deal with Fernand anymore after that. We do have another storm. This is Tropical Storm Gabrielle, and Gabrielle has 50-mile-an-hour winds. It's moving northwest at 7. It's way out there at 21.5, 34.4, way out by the Cabo Verde Islands, the Azores. I mean, Bermuda is way over here on the map, so this is far away from any land, but Gabrielle should become a hurricane later this weekend and head out towards the open ocean. There's a look at Gabrielle. You can tell this wind shear here from the southwest is impinging on it, which is why it's put up that little protective barrier trying to protect the center, but it should eventually get in a little bit more favorable environment and become a Category 1 hurricane. I should note that we still have 2 other systems out there of note, moderate chances for development. This area of disturbed weather near Bermuda here, that's a 60% chance the next 5 days. And the tropical wave moving off Africa, that's a 50% chance, and the area near Bermuda would likely move out. This tropical wave here could become a feature down the road that we would have to deal with, perhaps even as a hurricane. We're going to have to wait and see on that one. But we're getting down the name list. Andrea, Barry, Chantal, Dorian, Aaron, Fernand, and Gabrielle. And up next are Umberto and Imelda. So we'll see how far we get down this list. Obviously, Dorian will likely be stricken from the list when it's used again 6 years from now. So that'll do it this time. Dorian, once again, a major hurricane right offshore the South Carolina coastline, headed for points northward. If you live in areas like Bald Head Island, Cape Lookout, Outer Banks, Hilton Head, be on alert, because we have a major hurricane creeping up the South Carolina coastline this hour. I'm Mike Naso with the latest on Hurricane Dorian, and I'll see you next time.